We work hard as physicians to take care of the health and well-being of our patients. But when it comes to our money, do we have the same condition of care? Probably not. Let's change that together. Welcome to the Financial Freedom for Physicians podcast, where we'll fight and advocate for your financial literacy. As always, I'm your host, Dr. Christopher Liu. Thanks for being here. Let's jump into the show. Hey guys, I want to welcome you guys to the Financial Freedom for Physicians podcast. We've got a great episode this week. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button as well as the notifications bell, and be sure to like, comment, and share if you like this episode, and we'll get into this week's sponsor and show. This week's episode is sponsored by CityVest. CityVest has quickly become the most popular and best way for doctors to invest in top-performing real estate private equity funds that are usually reserved for institutional investors. This unique access to investing in these institutional funds is available for the first time ever through CityVest's easy and secure online investment platform. CityVest does the hard work of conducting due diligence and vetting the investments. They even get a third-party due diligence report that is posted on their website. As a result of aggregating a several million-dollar investment amount into their access funds, CityVest gains access to investing in the institutional investment and is able to negotiate better investment terms such as a 12% preferred return. You can check them out at cityvest.com or go to the link in the show notes below. Now on to the show. Before we begin today's content, here is a quick disclaimer. The information and material presented here is for informational purposes only and should not be construed as investment advice. The content is not a recommendation to buy or to sell. Some of the content may be for accredited investors only or may be sponsored posts. Every investment carries risks. Results have not been verified, so carefully weigh those risks against your investment goals and objectives and see if acting on the information matches with your investment thesis. Do your due diligence prior to investing, and as always, do not invest more than you can afford to lose. So welcome everybody to this week's podcast episode for the Financial Freedom for Physicians podcast, and I'm your host, Dr. Christopher Liu. And as you know, we talk about 4 different types of freedom: financial, emotional, time, location freedom. And so, as you know, I bring on guests that are high-income professionals, physicians, entrepreneurs, business owners. And so today we have Sammie Ellard-King, but he goes by Sammie, based out of the UK, and he's the founder of Up the Gains, Money Made Simple, and he's going to be talking about all about financial habits, finances, what's going on with the markets today, saving, investing. So, Sammie, welcome.
Hi, Chris. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I know we had talked backstage and we connected on Podmatch, and it's been absolutely fantastic and fabulous to have you.
Thank you.
So tell us more about your backstory, what got you started, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, so I've always been a serial entrepreneur as such, but probably quite badly in my younger years. So, I started my own business when I was 18. I took my student loan money and started an event instead of spending it on cheap booze like everybody else in my university. So I've always had that habit in me. But I was one of the youngest heads of marketing in the UK at 25. So I work in hospitality, mainly in food, bars, music. So now I co-own a company with a couple of friends of mine. We have a few venues in the UK. So I've been doing that for about 12 years now. When it comes to investing, I've been investing for about 8 years. I'm self-taught. I have some very good friends that work for hedge funds, so I've been quite lucky to have some good teachers along the way. I got looped into some pretty good email chains, etc., which was good back in the day for picking up some little stock tips. But I'm massively self-taught, and that's what I really preach. About 6 years ago, I started getting my family into this, and they got their friends into this from that, and friends of friends and their friends of friends. And during the pandemic, when we were sitting around, there was all of this time. And so I started a WhatsApp group, and it grew from about 10 people, 10 people all the way up to 250, which is the limit you could have on the group. So it literally couldn't let anybody else in. So I realized, I was like, hang on, I'm not making any money out of this. I'm spending all this time messaging people back and like getting them set up on investment accounts and picking funds for them based on what their preferences were, etc. And I was like, what, there's a business here, surely. So I started up the Gains, Money Made Simple, which is a website which is dedicated to beginners mainly, but equally as well, intermediate and more advanced levels too. There's the stock market. The terminology goes on for days, right? There's always something you don't know. So we really try and cover every broad topic from investing, funds, what type of accounts are good for you, passive income ideas, budgeting, saving, you name it, the full personal finance spectrum to really kind of improve people's lives. And working in hospitality is quite unforgiving. You send a lot of people home drunk, and you're only as good as your next take. You're always thinking, when we open the doors tomorrow, are we going to be as busy as we were yesterday? Are we going to be able to keep the lights on? That's stressful. But doing this is, helping people and changing people's lives financially will live with me forever. So that's kind of really my ethos.
Yeah, that's a fantastic backstory. So let's see here. We have so I was looking at some of the things. So what are, today, I'm based out of the US. So, now there's just blood on the streets. You look at the stock tickers, Fed's like trying to decrease demand. So they're, crushing the markets. So and I guess someone who's been in the, a lot of bear markets kind of can weather it out. They've been through it, but someone that's new, what do you tell them about, our current times?
I go back to one simple mantra. Look at the VTI, look at the Vanguard Total Stock Market Index. It goes one way, it goes up, it goes down, but it goes back up and it goes up again. And if you stretch that out for the last 70 years, yes, there's been multiple drops, but it's always come back. And sometimes it's taken 2 years, sometimes it's taken 5 years. In 2008, it took a long time, right, to get your money back. But it goes back up. So dollar cost average in every month, set yourself a budget, put that money away, put it into the stock market, and you'll thank yourself later. If you want to be smart about it, buy less when the market's up and buy more when the market's down. Personally, that's paying off for everyone since the beginning of time if you've been a stock investor. So, don't panic. These things happen. They're very normal. It's a cycle. And there'll be brighter days ahead. Fingers crossed.
Yeah. So and what so we have a macro environment. I guess one thing, for beginner investors, how can they get started? What are some things that they can do, like either budgeting apps or creating budgeting, better savers, investors? Tell us more.
It's a good question. To be honest with you, I think you should read A Simple Path to Wealth by J.L. Collins. I think that's the first thing you should do. That really changed my life. And realistically, you shouldn't be investing unless you've cleared your debt. My story comes from £20,000, $30,000 worth of debt up to financial freedom. So for me, that's your first port of call. Clear your debt. Get yourself back to the zero mark, net zero. That's where you want to be before you start investing in the stock market. Utilize technology. There's some fantastic apps out there now that can, with AI, they can take a look at your income and your spending, and then predict how much you're going to have to save each month, and perhaps some things you should probably cut out. And once you do a budget, I've done one budget in my life. I did it once, and I edit it. I edit it every 3-4 months now. Some people get meticulous with it and go day by day. Don't do that. You're never going to enjoy it. Like, there's no point, especially if you're not somebody that's actually enjoys numbers and ticking off things, and like, just get on with your life. Do it once, but when you do it, you will identify things on that list, guaranteed. You will look at it and go, do I really need to spend £50 a month on doing that? Do I really need all those coffees? Damn, I spent £120 on Uber last month. What am I doing? Like, I could have walked. So there's so many things, and you'll see it. And once you highlight those things, I guarantee you'll find an extra 5-10% of money that you can either pay off your high interest debt or get started investing. And if you want to get started investing and you don't have any idea what you're doing, open a stocks and shares ISA account, a 401k or a SIP. In the UK, the same thing. And buy the Vanguard Total Stock Market Index every single month, or the S&P 500, or just a straight index fund. And then whilst you're doing that, over that time period of, say, the first 12 months, teach yourself about individual stock picking, how to look at a company and assess their financials and understand what the fundamentals are and where that business is going and what a moat is, and all of these types of things, which will be valuable for you if you're a long-term investor. Teach yourself in time, but don't put pressure on yourself. You don't have to go for full tilt day one, start picking and options trading and all this type of stuff. You don't need to do it. So don't put the pressure on yourself to do it, but have the belief. And you need to be invested in the markets if you really want to get yourself out and financial freedom. And I'm sure if you listen to this podcast that you're some way along that journey already. So yeah.
Nice. And so you talk about a lot about like saving, budgeting. What are some top life hacks that can change your financial habits?
Oh, good question, Chris. It's a really good question. Do you know what it is? It's about investing in yourself as well. Yes, okay, you are investing in the stock market is fantastic, but if you're not investing in yourself, then I don't see how you can ever really get yourself out. Because the thing is, I do this. I own a hospitality business, and we invest in people. When we bring people on, then when they work for us, we give them £500 a year to buy, which is $620, for example, a year, to invest in a course in something that they want to do. So we're improving them as people. So for example, right, like our finance manager took a cooking course because he's 26 years old and cannot, he burns toast. So this guy cannot cook to save his life, right? So, he went on a cooking course, and that forwarded him as a person. What that does is bring people forward. They will constantly then want to push themselves in other areas that they're not so good at, and they want to learn. And I think learning is the best thing you could possibly do. It's the best life hack in the world. Never, ever stop learning.
Yeah. Any other ones besides learning, investing yourselves, like either just...
Do you mean more like passive income stuff?
Well, any so for example, like budgeting hacks, or any blogs, podcasts, websites.
Good questions. Yeah, absolutely. So one of the big things that I do is I have 3 bank accounts. Mm-hmm. So I was like, back in my 20s, I was useless with money, absolutely useless. Like, it came into my wallet, it went out faster than it came in. So for me, it was really important to block. If you're bad with money in any way, or you can't budget, then take out a savings account and get the debit card and cut it up in front of yourself. Now, I find that really powerful, because you're looking at it going, if everything I put in there, I've actually got to go to branch. And who the hell goes to branch these days? I mean, nobody goes to branch these days. Don't download the app. Don't even sign up for a telephone banking. Like, do not give yourself the opportunity. And then each month when that money comes in, you pre-populate the amount, so your percentages. So there's a lot about the 50-30-20 strategy. We totally agree with that. We try to get our readers to 40, 30, 30, and that last 30, 15% savings, 15% investments. And so as soon as that money comes in, you pre-populate that money, and that money goes into that savings account. You cannot touch that money. And that's your emergency fund. You know you're only going to go and get it when you need to. And that's really powerful. And that's a step one habit, which I like to do with people, because that really takes their viewpoint of money into a different realm. You know, they're looking at money, thinking about it totally differently. So 3 counts. So yeah, one for savings, and then one for high yield savings as well. But you can have access to that one. That's okay, because you can't get access to it anyway without applying. So, you know, it's about setting yourself some barriers if you're not that great with cash. And that's what we try and teach our readers from the start.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We hope you don't mind this brief interruption from one of our affiliates.
Doc to Doc is a personal lending solution designed by doctors for doctors. We understand that doctors' financial situations change faster than an insulin drip in ketoacidosis. And we also understand that doctors are the most reliable borrowers in the world. Through our proprietary algorithm, we're able to provide personal loans at great rates with amazing flexibility, because we take into account your schooling, your specialty, and where you are in the medical journey. Doctors come to us after they've matched into residency, and we loan for all sorts of personal reasons, from credit card debt consolidation to family expenses and medical bills. We speak with everyone who applies for a loan and offer fixed interest rates and flexible term options without prepayment penalties. If you're a physician looking for a personal loan, fill out our application form now. It only takes 3 minutes, and we'll get back to you with a decision within 24 hours.
So let's talk about the stock market. And you mentioned, because you have, you guess you have a lot of readers, and you write a lot. So for beginners, the best time to get in is during bear markets or downturns or recessions. That's the best time to like read and study and invest in yourself. So how can beginners start to educate themselves so that they can navigate the stock market for the future?
I think I'm a big fan of audio learning. You know, that right now, there's podcasts that we're on today. There's some fantastic ones out there. I love The Motley Fool Money from the US. It's fantastic. But I also love Panic with Friends by Howard Linton. He's a venture capitalist out of Phoenix. It's a brilliant podcast, but I turn like the commute into work. I take the train into central London every day. It takes me an hour there, an hour back. And I have a podcast in both times. And I'm learning, right, during that time about the markets, what's going on. It allows me to keep my finger on the pulse, discussing earnings reports on the Motley Fool. I love it. It allows me to really know what's going on. And it's good because, these guys are experienced people. Some of them have been in the markets like 30, 40 years. They've seen more things than you can ever imagine. So listening to them intently as a beginner is a great place to start, because, you'll start hearing them talk about, hey, the PE ratio of this is flying high at the moment, and you're like, oh, cool. Yeah, no, I read that in that article one time, but I didn't know what that is. Now I know what that is. So you start to really kind of, I'm a big fan of reading something, then listening, and then reading it back to myself, because then it's like cementing it, right? So you're hearing things from 2 different channels. So so I'm a big podcast fan. I absolutely love it.
Nice.
We've got a really good one here in the UK. For all you Americans, you should check it out. It's called Opto Invests. It's 2 really young guys. They work for a big investment firm called AJ Bell. It's really, really good. I mean, they have US investors, British investors, European investors all on there, venture capitalists, and data, very data driven as well. So I find that's much more my techie analyst style podcast, where I get really deep into macro trends and etc. And I love that.
Yeah. I can tell the passion and the enthusiasm in your voice for finances. So how to another area that you focus on is teaching people how to become a top investor. Talk more about that.
Yeah, so there's steps you can take when you're a beginner, and that's fine. We've been through that. But individual stock picking is really where it's at. It's I personally split my two accounts. I have a general investment stocks and shares ISA where I do my individual stock picking, and then in my pension, that's where I have my funds. So I have a lot of fun in my stocks and shares ISA. I think it's about setting out if you're like me, I'm early 30s, right? I've got a good 20, 30 years before potentially, forced to retire. So let's have some fun, right? I love investing in companies that are changing the world. Now, for me, I'm big on cloud right now. I'm very, very deep in fintech. I love fintech. I'm unfortunately I'm a SoFi holder, which has taken an absolute beating the last 12 months. But I'm holding on because I think it's a great business. But I'm looking for companies that are changing the world. So these guys, they might have been hit the last 12 months, but now is an unbelievable time to be picking up some of these growth names. And, I really do believe if companies like cloud, EV, fintech, software solutions, artificial intelligence, quantum computing is another one that's come out of nowhere. These types of businesses are going to be the leaders of tomorrow. So it's a great time to invest. If you're a more experienced stock buyer, I'd be looking into some of these names 100%.
Yeah, nice. And now I know we're coming close to closing in a couple minutes. So I guess you talk about, use of budgeting apps, investing apps, and how investing small amounts can regularly make a fortune. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, so one of the big things that we talk about, it's probably the first thing that I try to make people understand, is about compound interest. If you've never invested before, but equally as well, a lot of people who are invested don't know what compound interest is. And that's the first thing. If you are literally, when you begin and you regularly dollar cost average into the market, even with a low amount, you're pushing what I like to call the snowball off the hill, and it slowly starts rolling down. And every time you invest, you're giving it another little shove, and eventually it just starts rolling, and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. More snow you can throw it, which is the more money you can dollar cost average, the bigger it's going to get. And over time, it just grows and grows and grows and grows. And that's what investing does. You should be making sort of 7% adjusted for inflation a year. And so if you start adding that up, that's a decent rate of return over a long period of time. So even investing something like $150 a month, which is, let's face it, a lot of us can make that investment. And if you just want to dip your toes into the market just to see whether or not it's going to work out for you, that's what I would do. I would start with something small that you're not going to miss that much. You might spend out on a night with your buddies, and that's easy to put away. You're just putting it away, and then you think, okay, cool, this is actually okay, this is working out, I'm going to double it, I'm going to double down, I'm going to go for it. And you put it up to 300, and then next year you might put it up to 350 or 400. If you get a raise or a bonus, you might put that away. And that's all of these little things, is you chucking snow at the snowball, and it's getting bigger and it's moving and it's moving. And I think that is so powerful, and that's something that everyone should be aware of.
Nice. Yeah. And then what are some of the best books investors should read to create lasting wealth?
Oh, I mentioned my favorite one earlier. How to Teach Financial Independence and Retire Early was one of my favorites. It's actually an audio book by JD Roth. I'm actually signed up to his newsletter. He's still going, by the way. He's an incredible man. I would sign up to his newsletter. He sends like a markets newsletter out, but he's quite funny with it too. So takes the mick a bit, which is good fun. But I would seriously suggest listening to that because it's 10 life lessons as well. It's audio book. So you can stick it on, on a commute before you go to bed or while you're working out or something like that, and it will change the way you look at things. He was $130,000 in debt and is now financially free, and his net worth is 1.6 million, and he goes all around the world talking about it, and he talks about that journey and what he did. And I think it's a big, I really look up to that story, and it actually resonates really well with my own story. Slightly a smaller amount of debt, but same goal. So hopefully we end up like him. So I would highly suggest checking that one out.
Nice. Yeah. So we've come to the end of the podcast, and I know a lot of listeners are, you've given a lot of information, a lot of wisdom, a lot of gems. Some listeners may be interested in going to your website, reading about you, contacting you, or even working with you. So how can they do that?
Yeah. So our website is upthegains.co.uk. We're also on Twitter and Instagram at upthegainsmoney. Come say hi. Check it out. If you want to sign up to our newsletter, we send out one a month. We try to pick a passive income tip that we think is really cool, and we send you some good ways of doing that as well. So we try and comment a little bit on the market and give you a few nuggets that we're thinking about as well, perhaps something that we've added to our portfolios or we've sold. So we are really open with our portfolio. You can see it on our website too. You can check out what we're investing in. We've listed our top 10 holdings. And if you really want to check out my story a bit more, I have put out a book recently. It's called How to Go About Investing Money, a beginner's guide. So go and check that out. It's $9.99, so $12 for the US guys. But it's very US centric as well in what we talk about. So it definitely goes over the pond quite a bit. So, but yeah, that's us, Up the Gains.
Yeah, nice. Any last minute words of advice before we call it a day?
Oh yeah, just don't panic. Stay invested. Think about why you got in here in the first place. It's probably a great company you bought if you're thinking about selling it, and it's got good fundamentals. Don't keep it and buy in more.
Nice. Yeah, it's nice. I love that. Yeah. So to all the listeners on the podcast, all of Sammie's references and links and resources will be included in the show notes. And Sammie, we look forward to having you as a future guest on the podcast.
Thanks, Chris. It's been a pleasure. Cheers.
What a fantastic show. I hope you enjoyed our very special guest. Just remember, as a shout out to our this week's sponsor, CityVest.com. CityVest gives you access to the best real estate private equity funds with enhanced investment terms, verified due diligence, and lower risk. You can check them out at cityvest.com or click on the link in the show notes below to hear about their upcoming investment offerings. If you enjoyed that episode, don't forget, that's just the free content. We also have paid premium content subscription with better guests, information, updates, and discussions that can't be accessed anywhere else. You can subscribe to our premium content by clicking on the link in the show notes below to subscribe. Just a quick note, members who sign up for the bottom floor price introductory the first year will be grandfathered into that price for life. I expect the monthly subscription amount to increase quickly next year and the year after, so don't delay. I'm excited that you made it for another episode. You are truly the best. If you've been following the show for a while, you know that my passion is to bring you the education you need to find your path to financial freedom. Please come back week after week for new content, new resources, and great guests. Until then, if you haven't already, please be sure to check out the website, www.drchrislumdphd.com for more support. I'll see you next week.